a complex modern society. I mean, people are doing extraordinarily different things. And although there may be a pressure to conformity in the suburbs, so to speak, or at home, there does seem a considerable pressure to non-conformity or to differentiation in the functional life of people. I mean, I have no idea to what extent one offsets the other, and whether the conforming drive is stronger than the drive towards differentiation. I just don't know what the answer to this. I mean, I read about the high degree of conformity, and of course one does see that certainly as compared with the 19th century, this society does seem to be more conformist. I mean, if one reads the history of the utopian colonies which were set up during the 19th century, this is really extravagant. I mean, it's inconceivable to think of anything like the Oneida community or Brook Farm even being set up today. I mean, that this would be so outrageous that it would be impossible to imagine. And yet, in these Victorian days, there was this freedom to make experiments, social experiments of the wildest character. Again, exactly what this means and exactly what the significance is for us and for the future, I don't really know. I mean, I just feel so incapable of really understanding the unutterably odd facts of real life. I mean, I think one very often just has to accept them. There they are, and what really they mean, I don't know. I mean, perhaps this is one of the charms of history, that one never really knows what it means.
Yes, a gentleman there.
If you have always been interested in religious ideas, including mysticism, there are certain problems and implications arising out of the use of artificial beings, human beings. Would you care to comment on?
Well, this is finally related to the whole mind-body problem. I mean, we still don't know very much about the relation of mind and body. I mean, we know clearly that they're related to one another very closely, but exactly how electrochemical events in the central nervous system turn into the G minor quartet of Mozart, we really haven't the faintest idea. I mean, I don't think we have any more idea than Aquinas or Aristotle. I mean, all we can say is that it happens. And we do know a good deal more about the nature of the electrical and the chemical events. But again, what the bridge is, and whether it's enough to say, like the neutral monists, that the two aspects, the mental and the physical, are merely the same thing seen from different sides. Again, I don't know. I mean, even then, I mean, how can the same thing look so profoundly different? Something I don't understand. And in relation to the mystical experience, I mean, clearly this is correlated with electrochemical states within the central nervous system, and I would be all for studying these states. I mean, I think it's exceedingly important that we should know about it. I mean, I can imagine a whole branch of science which would be called neurotheology or myco-mysticism. I mean, this sounds funny, but nevertheless, it's we have to be able to speak in the same kind of language about the two aspects of any of these experiences, the neurological and the subjective. And then we, I suppose, on the philosophical level, we have to make the decision which William James posed for us. I mean, he says perfectly obvious that that a mind is a function of the nervous system, but is it a productive function or is it a transmissive function? I mean, it does, as Cabanis said at the beginning of the 19th century, does the brain secrete thought as the liver secretes bile? Or is it some kind of valve, as James himself, I think, thought, and as certainly as Bergson thought, through which a pre-existent mental element finds access into the human being? I mean, Bergson's view was that, of course, it was a kind of reducing valve which permitted only those aspects of a universal consciousness which were useful to our survival as animals on the surface of the planet and as social creatures within a society to come through. Well, I don't know. As James says, that the both points of view are quite difficult from a philosophical point of view to justify, but the transmissive view is no more difficult than the productive view, and perhaps he's right. I think my own view is that, on the whole, that he and Bergson were nearer the truth than the Cabanis, but I don't know.
This gentleman in the white shirt there.
Dr. Huxley, would you care to comment on Sir Julian Huxley's views on artificial insemination donation?
Well, I don't know that I know his views exactly.
I was going to... You care to clarify that for us?
I think he favors, along with a Dr. Herman Muller of Indiana University.
Oh, yes.
Here in the United States. I think that we can genetically improve the human race by adopting amongst the population the practice of artificial insemination using the sperm of intelligent individuals. And I don't know how he determines that these individuals are to be chosen, but I was just wondering if you were familiar with these.
Well, I mean, this is, of course, the whole problem of eugenics. I mean, if one knew how to apply eugenic principles, I think unquestionably one could improve the average quality of the human race. And I mean, there is some evidence, as Bert pointed out a long time ago, and as Medower has pointed out more recently, that there is some evidence that there is a slight decline of average IQ, and that this certainly could be remedied. But of course, as you say, the problem is to choose who. I mean, I can perfectly imagine that if the Cold War goes on for a very long time, that side which first starts artificial insemination for the production of people with greater talent in the physical sciences will win. And I read a paper the other day by, I forget who, a biologist at the University of California at Santa Barbara. It was an amusing paper, but I mean, it had quite interesting and serious aspects to it on sort of the hypothetical Cold War action on the part of the dictatorial powers who were able to make use of eugenics in ways which would not, as this author whose name I cannot now remember, in ways which were not necessarily very tyrannical, because of after all, the woman would be allowed to marry whomever she liked, but provided she had children by selected fathers outside the relationship, so that, I mean, there would be the actual personal relationships between husband and wife would not be modified seriously. But I mean, this, as I say, was a fantasy, but it looked like a fantasy which could quite likely come true, and could, as the geneticists I think are all agreed, could certainly lead to considerable results. Of course, on